Well, nothing will go right today. That's why I'm a bit late back with you. Nothing will go right. We got ourselves into some sort of a circle, and would it come good? No, it would not. No, it most certainly would not. And it just played up, and the it just held us back, and even now I'm not absolutely sure whether we've got it right. But we will try our utmost, and see what we can do and whether we can retrieve the situation. And oh no, it's just it's all over the place, this morning. And I mean, it's just silly. It's absolutely silly. I've never had such dreadful trouble as I've had today. But there we are. It happens, and there's a lot I can do about it. It's in the hand of God, and if not God, seemingly the devil. So let's hope that something has come together, and that we'll get something somewhere from something somewhere. Let's have a look and see whether there is anything here that. No, it's just it's just so silly. It's all over the place. But there is something here that just might work. Let's try. Me learning to dance. No, it's not. It's put up an alert. It's put up an alert. We are. I'm afraid you just have to put up with me for an hour or so. No, not an hour. We've got Melissa coming along in 3/4 of an hour. But for the most part, it just is very, very frustrating. But everything goes wrong. And it isn't just me, slippy fingers, as it quite often is. But there are alerts coming from the people that supply our software saying we're having trouble establishing this in your browser, and please contact us. But that's a fat lot of good. By the time I've contacted them, it'd be time for the program to be over. So we're going to have to do what we sometimes do, and that is just take a quick look at the papers on the inside. Now, the one thing I do have is that Kevin, God bless him, because he's been a bit poorly, he cleaned out the tubes that deliver the beer a little later than usual, and so suddenly, as if by magic, before the sun is over the yard arm, a beer appeared in front of me. Well, so. So there we are. At least I get a beer, even if you don't. and how is I keep swearing that we try hard to avoid celebrities, so called, unless they are full of substance. But I think that we'll all admit that Mick Jagger has demonstrated that he's got staying power and that he knows what it's about when it comes to music, that he's got talent. He wasn't just a one-shot wonder, as many people were at the time that he came to fame in the last century. He's still at it today, and he was celebrating his 80th last night, and apparently he stayed until 2 o'clock in the morning, had one whale of a time. Now, why would that be of great interest to us in Lewes? Well, the fact of the matter is, he was a star guest here in Her Majesty's prison, the one just on the edge of town, the one that you pass as you drive into Lewes, and the one that you wave to as you go out of Lewes. It just it depends which direction you're going in. And it was in his early days, and the establishment, and believe me, the establishment can be very, very strange sometimes. The establishment were of two minds. Some people saw him as representing what the youth of the day wanted, and others saw him as a threat to the establishment because of his, the fact is that he was in court for the use of drugs. And it was a carefully staged raid on his premises while everybody knew that he was going to be puffing on weed. So he was a very controversial character even in those days. And he wasn't in the Lewes prison for very long because, having been put there, those people who realized that he could be made a martyr for the drug trade moved heaven and earth to get him out. But in the time that he was there, he got hungry. They went in and they hauled him out, and they took him directly to Lewes prison. And it was well into the evening, and he accosted his warders and said, "Oi, I'm hungry. What have you got?" And they said, "Nothing. The kitchen is closed. It's Sunday night. Ha ha ha." When have you heard that before? And as a consequence, what he did was he said, "Well, give me a phone." In those days, we didn't have mobile phones. Oh, no, we did not. He said, "Give me a phone." So they led him to a phone, which I assume was on the wall. He picked it up and said, "Which restaurants do takeaway?" And they said, "Sunday night. There's only one that possibly might just do it for you, and that is the White Hart." So Mick Jagger put through a call to the White Hart and said, "Oi, Mr. Cliff, can we get something to eat, please? We'd like a takeaway, and we'd like it sent to Lewes prison." To which Cliff, in his normal, wonderful way, with great aplomb, just takes on board absolutely everything that's thrown at him. Said, "Well, yes, of course, Mr. Jagger. give us half an hour, and we'll have something down to you." Now, it is said that the menu for that takeaway is hidden in the bowels of the hotel somewhere, and where nobody knows. We can't find it, but we know it exists. And so hopefully, in the fullness of time, and particularly when people will be looking for every scrap of memorabilia that they can about Mick Jagger, is a real search will be undertaken, and undoubtedly in a back cubbyhole or an old trunk or somewhere where it's least expected, this takeaway menu, will turn up. It will appear. And so that's the relationship that Mick Jagger has with Lewis. He was a guest. He's a guest of Her Majesty here. He's added to the royal theme that runs through the history of this town. My goodness me. Yes, from Alfred the Great, who many believe named it and who established it as a township, its own governance, its own council, which Elizabeth II took it away. She didn't know that she was taking it away. It was done in her name by some local worthies who really should have known better. Should absolutely have known better. Because part of the reason that the town is creaking at the moment is that it's got no heart. It's got no centre. Nobody knows where Lewis is. It's a collection of buildings. And when you get a collection of buildings without a heart, without a soul, then you get a town that is crumbling. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. But you know, the funny thing is that my good friend Graham Addercott used to say, when we would be in strange places, trying to teach journalists what freedom of expression was all about, he'd say they didn't know, or they don't know what they don't know. And that is the problem here. We have people in charge who don't know what they don't know. And as a consequence, it doesn't matter what they do. None of it is focused on righting the real wrong, getting to the heart of the real problem. It's just a nonsense, and it gets worse and worse and worse. They don't even try to patch it up. They just try to make it convenient for them. Towns aren't conveniences. Towns are living, throbbing, pulsating things and need to be treated as such, need to be looked after, need to be cosseted, need to be nurtured. And we haven't got any of that because we haven't got anybody here to do it. They're all in Eastbourne. Crazy crackers. It really is. You've got to really question the mental health. We're worried about mental health. Well, is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Lovely to have a little sip of beer first thing in the morning before anybody else can have one. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, the madmen are in charge, and the rest of us are incarcerated. We know what's needed. We know what should be done, but we're not in charge. And so we can't. We have to have the odd foray outside, cocking a snook at those people who ostensibly are our leaders and who are as mad as Mad Hatters, mad as March hares. Dear. Anyway, all that out of the fact that Mick Jagger, and as the Mail very unkindly calls it, Mick Stagger, is an unsteady stone, gets a helping hand home from his 80th batch. Where was it held? It doesn't mean he's ready for a pipe and slippers yet. So Mick Jagger proved he still knows how to party. He had hosted a bitter blowout. Not a bitter blowout, just a blowout birthday bash to celebrate his 80th at a London nightclub. It wasn't even a Brighton nightclub; it was a London nightclub. So he was well away from being a bad influence this time. But nonetheless, that relationship will stay for as long as there are people like me around, and those people who like to talk about the history of Lewes and keep us at the straight. Oh, yes, sir. I know I didn't get much sleep last night. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning working, and I can't stop it. I go to bed early. Well, not that early. I mean, you go to bed 9 o'clock, and I drop off to sleep. I wake up and it's still today. It's not even tomorrow. And after that, it's all downhill when it comes to the sleep state. Anyway, that is all about the inside. And at 3 a.m. Ooh. Yes, he is looking a little bit the worse wear, that's for sure. I must say. Leonardo DiCaprio was there, and he was in just as bad shape. Well, at least they weren't hiding it. They weren't pretending, that's for sure. Right. Oh, well. Now, let's just talk about hospitality in this town of ours, shall we? Because actually, the number of good restaurants are very, very few. I mean, I'm told there is one at the bottom of the cliff, a true restaurant. There are hybrids like Bill's, which isn't really a restaurant. It's not a pub either. It's a sophisticated greengrocer, isn't it? But we have one which is halfway down Station Street, and I keep forgetting the name of it. And we have Cote, which is part of a chain. There are a couple that purport to be Italian restaurants, and then nothing of the sort. They are. Oh, we've got lots of excitement outside the hotel with blue flashing lights. And so presumably the coppers are here for some reason or another. We have it's part of a chain, and it's okay. Let's just say it's okay, nothing special. But the one thing that we do have is we have a pretty fair standard of pub food. And the pub food is extremely good. And there are 16 pubs, and most of them offer a good Sunday lunch. One or two that don't, and one which markedly does not is the Gardener's Arms. But that is not a strike against it, because the Gardener's Arms is that rarity now is a true pub. It exists to serve beer. It exists for people to go and talk over the bar. No bar games, no food. I mean, I think you can get a pickled egg, and sometimes you can get a pork pie, but that's about the size of it. No great kitchens or anything of that sort. So we must disqualify it from falling under the pub food situation and saying it isn't a pub, because it is. In fact, it's probably the best pub in town. And I have people that I feel close to who run pubs in this town. But I have to say that the Gardener's Arms is quite exceptional. But they do show a very, very good Sunday lunch. And there's a story here that says the pub where the Sunday roast is so good, it has a 4-year waiting list. And at first glance, it might appear to lack the culinary pyrotechnics of Heston Blumenthal, his fat duck, at the cutting edge of some of London's hippest hangouts. But try booking a table for Sunday lunch at the Bank Tavern, an unassuming pub tucked away down a medieval lane in Bristol city centre, and you'll face a wait of 4 years. 4 years. Wow. The only the only wood panelled boozer, wood panelled boozer, has been named in a survey as the hardest restaurant to get a reservation at, not just in the UK, but the world. While the wait to secure a table could seem unappetizing, once you finally get one, you can look forward to tucking into a mouth-watering meal for a very, very reasonable price. A typical 3-course Sunday lunch, there might feature a starter of maple sriracha, maple sriracha, a glazed pork belly with apple slaw. Apple slaw. Jesus. They get pretentious, don't they? A main course of 30-day dry-aged rare topside of beef with Yorkshire pudding, roast potatoes, homemade gravy, parsnip puree, creamy leeks, braised red cabbage, and seasoned vegetables. And a dessert of strawberry and white chocolate pavlova. All for £26.95. Wow, that's pretty damn good. Yeah, that's pretty damn good. Mind you, the interest and inflation probably made it more expensive from the time that you actually booked. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss Melissa. And basically, we've had the technical problems have spread globally because for the last 2 days I've been trying to get a former colleague who's a very interesting chap. Started out life in the Guards and ended up owning 5 chateaus in France. Fascinating character. Whom we actually with I'll let him tell you what we were together because we were lazy buggers. That's what we were. But nonetheless, we were having a good time, and we were young, and when we responsibility wasn't great. It's not great, but there's a chap called Harry Ashton, an interesting bloke. But in France, the internet seems to be slightly different, and he can't get it to go onto his computer. So we're going to get the people that look after us, StreamYard, to talk to him over the weekend and see whether we can actually get it out. There's lots going on outside. We're getting lots of police cars, flashing lights. No, I'm not absolutely sure that they're not setting up a roadblock. Well, exciting times if they are. Certainly lots of flashing lights, and the police car is way out in the middle of the street. I hope that this van that is looking at isn't got a bomb in it, because we're right in the firing line. We've had it. It has. Anything can happen nowadays. You find yourself in the middle. I mean, thank goodness I spent all those years in Northern Ireland because the whole idea doesn't panic me. Some people it does and will. Anyway, I'm going off piece a little bit because we have discovered a Sunday lunch for 4-year wait, and for only £26. Pretty good, pretty damn good. Now, one of the things about I just can't eat terribly much anymore, and I mean it must be 18 months or so ago now. I took myself off to Battle for a weekend. I rather like Little Battle, and it's a nice town to wander around and not get too excited about things. You can sit in some nice little parks there, or in the Abbey grounds, where the battle actually took place. And right opposite to I think it is called the Abbey Arms or something of the sort. Right opposite is a pub, and I went there for Sunday lunch. First of all, the landlord was a very typical pub landlord, full of bonhomie and laughter and jokes and so on and so forth. Knew his customers well, and it made me feel very, very welcome. And then I looked on the menu, and there it was, seniors. His Sunday roast, he had a senior portion, children's portion, and a senior's portion, just enough to fill me, and not have to throw half of it into the waste bin. Really, not have to throw half of it into the waste bin. And I thought that what a great innovation. Now I go and I say to the pub landlords here, look, I'm not being nasty, I'm not being naughty, but can I have the child's portion, which is just the right amount for me? They're all very good. Yes, they can. The only thing is that it shows the difference in standards at various pubs. I'm not going to name names, it's not fair. But at one pub, all they do is they knock £2 for half portion, they knock £2 off the full portion. So you pay a small fortune for only half the meal. Well, that's a good way of making money. Is you charge for what you don't serve. But at the other one, it was very, very good value for money. It was, in fact, I think the total bill, the glass of wine and a two-course meal came to £13. Pretty damn good. I'm not going to tell you what the other one came to, because it was a bit outrageous in my opinion. I just heard some little pitty pats behind me, but I don't see anybody looming in the background. So this is Sunday lunch, and the reason that I'm talking about Sunday lunch, and indeed, let's talk for a moment about pubs in general in Lewes, because we have very, very good pubs. I think we have 16 pubs, and there's not one that I would be afraid to go into. I'm perfectly happy to go in at any time of the day or night into any of those pubs. Hello.
Hello. Can I see if I hear?
The reception is just to your left. Yeah, that's it. I get to act as hall porter as well. And most of them do a very, very good job, not only of being pubs, but also of serving food, and particularly on a Sunday. And if I'm sensible, Sunday, I shall go out again and have a Sunday lunch out. I don't mind sitting on my own and ruminating. For many years, we had big Sunday lunches, big family Sunday lunches, lots of guests, and plenty of jollity at the table. Now I'm on my own. A lot of those people who were at those tables have gone, and so I have to find my own amusement. And I have got to know several landlords quite well. So they don't leave me out. They chat to me and make sure that people around me are aware of who I am, so that if they feel that they want to talk about television or they want to talk about anything else for that matter, is they can. And that's very good standard of pub landlord. But they also nearly all have a very high standard of food. So the pub sector in this town is very good. It really is well worthwhile. If you want to go out, there are some that perhaps one might think a bit different to others. I'm very, very fond of the Rights of Man. For the longest time, I was a denizen of the Brewers Arms, but many others I've been a favourite at. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that I've been the favourite. They have been my favourites. Let's put it that way. My favourites. And the John Harvey Tavern, pretty damn good too. And now I've got to mention the Swan and the Black Horse, and then suddenly you find yourself in this because the Dorset Arms is not bad at all, and the Snowdrop. Goodness gracious me! Now there is a change because when I first came to Lewes in 1990, the Snowdrop was a pub to avoid. Now it's a pub to die for. It's very good. It's got good food, good ambience, and well worthwhile going to. So there are many, mind you, a number of pubs have closed since I first came here, and I think it should be against the law for a pub to close. It should. You shouldn't allow pubs to close. It's just dreadful to do that, and do you know there is a group on a local app, I suppose they call it. Do they? Social media things, and they are trying hard to take a working man's club, which is now gone beyond use, and turn it into a community pub. Well, it fell at the first hurdle. It fell at the first hurdle. And the council will not sanction it. I find that very upsetting, to say the least. It should be finding every reason why it should be a community pub run by community people. The very thing that we should be encouraging. Oh, no. Goodness gracious me. Let us not get confused with... oh, dear. I've just blown it again. Never mind. And that's the sort of thing that we should encourage. How on earth they can turn down a community pub? Oh, this is just not working. Nothing is working somewhere. Believe me, you have no idea just how frustrating this system has been. It is nothing. Nothing is doing what it's supposed to do. Nothing. And I'm utterly sick because it's basically what happens is I push a button that is intended to make this system do certain function, and it doesn't. Something else pops up. For instance, I want to go to New York, right? Okay, I push the button for New York, and what happens is that I get something that advises me how to play dominoes in the back streets of Ringmer. I mean, that's how daft and how silly it's become. It really is crazy, and why it's all up the chute, I have no idea. However, one of the things that I do say is we are told that computers are the answer to everything, and they're not. Computers go wrong regularly, and we need to watch very carefully. Very carefully, because it's not just that we put our trust in airplanes now. Run by computers, but we put our trust in all sorts of things. That our ticket is right, that we're not being ripped off. Look at that. See, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do. Just as absolutely the opposite. Can you tell? Can you tell the frustrated look on my face? You should be able to. All this while I'm dreaming about a half-decent pub. Oh, let's see if that is going to help us at all. Let's just try it. Oh, there's something went right for once. Something went right. You see, that was supposed to add me to the thing. It didn't. Ooh, it's Friday. It must give you a great deal of satisfaction looking at somebody who's as frustrated as I am on a Friday. No wonder I'm taken to the drink. Oh dear, oh dear. And this would drive anybody to drink. Anyway, all that is because there's a pub roast somewhere in Bristol where you wait 4 years to get a booking for having your Sunday lunch there. Let's see. Right. There is an article on a secret deal with the palace. It's not plausible, says the judge. Prince Harry's phone hacking claim against the Sun was thrown out yesterday after an extraordinary wrangle about a Buckingham Palace secret agreement. The Duke of Sussex had claimed that a clandestine deal between palace courtiers and newspaper executives was the reason he had not brought his case sooner. After he launched the action against News Group newspapers, publisher of The Sun and News of the World, the company argued that he was too late. By law, claimants have 6 years to start legal action after they find out about the alleged activity. Harry's response was to say he would have brought the case sooner, but for a secret agreement at the palace in 2012 that had stopped him doing so. Doesn't sound right to me, says the judge. Oh dear. Yeah. So that's also on the inside of the pages. It's now 10 for those people who rely upon us. It's 21 minutes past 10 to be absolutely accurate. And right now it's 18 degrees, mostly cloudy. Not a drop of rain out there at the moment. It's dry and nice. Only the top 10% of earners can now afford the average price of a house. Well, that I can well believe. And not a very good... the open market economy is much better than a central planned economy. What's the difference, some of you will say? Well, one is the way that we actually operate at the moment, with people making filthy profits, huge profits, because of market forces being how the price of something is settled and determined by the market, not by somebody setting a price. Whereas a centrally planned economy is a communistic situation, where you don't have competition, is that the government has its finger in every pie. I remember the very first time that I went to Moscow, which would be way back in 1975, and looking out of the hotel window, and opposite was a butcher. And all it said was butcher, not Jones the butcher or Smith the butcher, just butcher. And then there was another one further along the street, fishmonger. And that was it. And getting used to that was a bit difficult, a bit of a problem. But that's the way it was. That indeed was the way it was. Wow. We just something that's flashed up on the screen, where a man is actually his professor, Mark Maybe, who's a former friend and colleague. Well, he's not a former friend; he still is a friend, and hopefully he and Suzanne Mucho, once we come back from our summer break in September, are going to produce an education program for us between the two of them, one in New York and the other in Stoke-on-Trent. It's rather an exciting prospect, actually, but he just made a comment. I don't know what it is because it went off too quickly. But it's interesting that we've got our staff, as it were, is going on a busman's holiday and watching us. Well done, Mark, and well done, Suzanne, who is our blue house fly. She's our original blue house fly. She's all over the place. There's no holding her down. But there we go. I'm just looking at one last story before we go on the inside. Miracles do exist. A mother's joy as a girl who vanished 4 years ago, aged 14, is found safe 1,000 miles away. And Alicia Navarro, before running away, and relieved mum Jessica. A 14-year-old girl vanished from her home in 2019. The only clue left behind was a note she wrote to her parents. Alicia Navarro apologized for running away and promised, "I will be back." Despite a huge police manhunt in Glendale, Arizona, no trace of her was found. Her disappearance was investigated by the FBI, but it wasn't until Tuesday that the case was cracked, when Alicia walked into a police station 1,000 miles away in Montana. Shocked officers in Glendale immediately responded when they realized the 18-year-old had identified herself to their colleagues just 40 miles from the Canadian border. Well, there you are. There you are. So that's what's going on in the inside of the newspapers, as it were. One thing that next week, next Wednesday, I believe, at the town hall, next Wednesday evening, there is a concert, a mixture of verse and video and so on, in memory of late Mayor, a man held in wide esteem and regard, Stephen Catlin, who actually was a very good friend of mine, but he also was my neighbor. I lived right next door to him. So I got to know Stephen a long time ago when he ran a sweet shop on the high street. And his passing was something of a shock. And it's certainly because of his huge stature as a politician, many of those, is the great respect and esteem with which he was held. So it is next Wednesday. It's being organized, as I understand it, by the Depot, that restaurant cinema complex down by the station. And it promises to be a very interesting evening. We, on the other hand, are making sure that he's remembered in a different way. If actually the if the council will let us, is Stephen had a thing called the Secret Garden, and the Secret Garden was his pride and joy, and he actually developed it, looked after it, and so on, and it's been let go. When he was too ill to look after it, nobody took up the reins. We plan to take up those reins, and that is our memorial to Stephen Catlin, is the continuation of his Secret Garden. And just while we're waiting, let's. I showed it yesterday. I'm going to show it again today. Here is Stephen's Secret Garden.
Hello, here we are at what was Pinwell Lane. It ran up through here to the top of the high street. It became closed off some years ago, and this land is now called Manorial Waste. And we have to thank Every, the great Lewis Ironmaster, for bringing the gateway from the Grey Friars Franciscan Priory here. This is the only bit that remains. The Premier Inn is now on the site and had been a railway station before. This is the much vaunted Secret Garden. Until just a few years ago, it was covered in weeds, brambles, and goodness knows what else. I suggested to the Friends of Lewis that it would be better, considering its location behind this ancient gateway, if we could cultivate it a bit. And aided by Jane Tyra and Gillian Ross, I've managed to turn it into this. I'm somewhat embarrassed to say a lot of people keep coming to take photos of it. And I can see there's an overturned pot I must rescue. But here we are. This is one of the better examples of the fruits of my labours. And I hope it gives you pleasure. Thank you. This, the family burial place of William Edwin and Anne Baxter. And dear little Emily in amongst the undergrowth somewhere. The hollyhocks will be butchered this week. But it is rather nice, the bizarre colours matching exactly how Victorian colour printing was done. But it will get a tidy up this week, I promise. Because it'll be me that does it. Oh, and the bees. I'm so pleased to see bees and butterflies around here. There is one feeding. Isn't that wonderful? There's one bee I've saved. It's easy to get lost in the middle of this. See, zinnias, nearly 3 foot tall. They're only supposed to grow a foot. It must have been a good horse. So much colour. Well, I don't think death should be sombre. It should always be a bit bright and jolly. We'll just move this. Let the colour radiate. That's it. It looks good from the other end, don't it? Like all shows, backstage is not so pretty. Mind the bricks behind you.
Well, watching with us behind the scenes, as it were, was Melissa Conti, who was a colleague, a great friend, and admirer of Stephen Catlin, and a star of Mirador Television. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith. That's quite an introduction. I have to say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and having seen, I clicked on and I saw Stephen in the Secret Garden, and that just put me in such a good mood. So thank you to Stephen, because otherwise it would have been quite a discussion.
Joe Biden has been given reprieve.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy now. Although I must say that I think the first shot that I saw and I clicked on was of a dog's bottom. That was very funny. I like that.
Well, should I tell you why we actually put that there?
Yeah, why did you record a dog's bottom?
Because quite often what we say is, particularly in our government, is the tail is wagging the dog.
Oh, okay.
Very good to see you, and you're looking very, very fresh and beautiful as always. So what's happening in your neck of the woods?
What's happening in my neck of the woods? It's very hot here. It's like, what is it, 35 degrees Celsius. It's too hot. But then again, it is summer, but yeah, it's very oppressive. So it's difficult to breathe in the city. So, and I've been going in lately. So
the head of the United Nations, I think it is, has said that the Earth is going to boil to pieces. There's a definite change in weather patterns, which is now noticeable. So our papers this morning have got headlines like the Earth is boiling to pieces or whatever. So although you're used to the heat, people over here aren't. So there are alarm bells sounding as a result. Yes, you're hot. People here are getting quite concerned about it, and it seems to have reached the United Nations.
Right. I mean, it's funny. I'm going to be traveling to Italy next month, and it hadn't really dawned on me that we have the same, like we're going to Naples, and so we have the same weather in New York. It's not any different. We just don't think about it because we do get a lot of, we don't get any snow anymore, really. Maybe I think we really don't. This past season, we had maybe a little bit of flurries, and that was it. We usually get I mean, when I was a child, we've got so much snow, and we'd always go out sleigh riding. It was quite enjoyable, but we really don't. It's very erratic. See, that's really what it is. It's so erratic, but we're leaning toward warmer. So, and I guess it's weather changes, seasons change. But people misunderstand. You're talking about climate. You're talking about these trends. When you're talking about weather, you're talking about, oh, well, it's hot today because it's summer, so it's supposed to be hot. Yeah, they don't understand the point. But definitely, it's trending upward, and it's trending upward pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, exactly. The question is, what do we do about it?
Mm-hmm. What do we do about it? It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, we need Stuart here. Because it could be it could be just a change in. We all need to shift our personal habits. Certainly, we can't go on the way we're going without making some changes, or we're just going to have to suffer through the heat.
Yeah. Of course, the pressures of people, for instance, who manufacture plastics and the things which we would prefer to keep out of the sea, is they're not going to give up their factories easily.
Unless we change our habits as consumers, each of us as individuals. I got to be honest, I can't stand plastic.
No,
I really can't, because then I have to feel guilty that I'm not recycling. I'd rather just not buy it to begin with. Honestly, I'd
yeah.
rather not spend my money on it. I have
Well,
my coffee cup. Everything's reusable.
Yeah, I mean, people are like lemmings. They just follow. They don't show much initiative. I mean, somebody started what to me seems to be quite a sensible initiative, and that is what you do is you get a recyclable cup. So when you go to your favorite coffee shop, you take your mug with you. I mean, some people are doing it, but generally speaking, you can stand in the queue at the coffee shop and everybody's getting a plastic cup or whatever. They're not taking them. And I must say, I'm guilty in that sense.
Yeah, I can be guilty of that. Sometimes I'll forget my cup. So yeah, I get it. I'm not perfect either. We all have to really make this effort, and
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
but
I'll do my best today. I will bring my mug and try to avoid plastic. I really can't stand it. But when you go to the store, think about it. You go to Waitrose, right?
Yes.
And it's a beautiful store. It's very clean. I'm really appreciated. But everything's in plastic. Everything is in plastic.
Right. Absolutely. Now I did do my bit because 40 years ago I stopped smoking, so I haven't been polluting the atmosphere with smoke. Aren't I a good boy for 40 years?
Yeah.
Mind you, good. I did my best to make up for it before that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I try to walk more. It saves miles on my car. So I can keep my car and not have to, like the Americans, got to have a new car every year. Really, folks? Really? Really got to junk your car all the time? Piles of junky cars everywhere. Are you serious? Come on, folks. Like, because I have to have a pretty car to impress the person at the stoplight I'll never see again. Really? How shallow are we?
Well, I've got my little scooter now. Maximum speed 5 miles an hour, and I draw up the light. There's a bus, a great big bus, and I look at the driver. I know some of them because I've used the bus quite a lot. I look at the driver and I sort of go boom, 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 and he grins and so on. Off he takes, and then I potter off at 5 miles an hour. But there's a lot of talk about electric vehicles, and of course these scooters are electric. All it gives is just a slight hum of the motor, but it really is very efficient in many ways. And of course you don't have a mile counter because it doesn't matter. You don't need to know how many miles the vehicle is undertaken because it's just using a minimum amount of electricity. It's rather great.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you plug it in? Is there a place where you park it and you plug it in?
Well, I'm very lucky because where I live in the complex, there's a little place to park some of these scooters, and there is a plug there. So I have a little sort of cord, which I plug into the scooter. I plug into a wall plug. That's at home. And I have to say, the people who own the hotel where we broadcast from, Cliff and Sally, to my absolute amazement, sort of said, "Oh no, what you do is you drive it into the hotel and you park it there, and that's near to a plug. Plug it in." Absolutely astonishing, and they've been absolutely terrific. So people at that level in our society here have accepted the concept of electric vehicles.
Very good. Very good. I guess my next vehicle will be electric, but that's about maybe 5 to 10 years away. I like to keep my cars for at least 15 years.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I only turned in my Model A a year or two ago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The thought of buying a new car, spending $40,000. Are you serious? Are you serious?
I know. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I just want to get from here to there. That's it. Done.
Yeah, but the smaller the car, the more expensive it is. Because before I was struck down by this dreadful disease that I've got, I've got in mind that I might well get a smart car, a tiny little vehicle, and so on. So I started to investigate them. They're 3 times more expensive than the average saloon.
Like
It's remarkable.
I'll tell you what's very popular here are the Mini Coopers here. Very, very popular. With the Union Jack lights on the back. I don't know if you see those. I'm thinking to myself, well, why are you, this is America. Why do you have Union Jack lights? Well, it's very, Britain, and to us, Britain is very posh. You're all very posh, Keith.
Well, I had a Mini Cooper S when I lived in Vancouver, and that was in 1970. So I was one of the first people to have a Mini. And my wife, Valerie, went out one night with a couple of her girlfriends, and I got an anguished call at midnight, and it was stolen. And a couple of weeks or so later, the RCMP, because I lived in North Vancouver, which is under federal police, not the city police, called me to say that they'd caught the guy. They'd found the car. It was burned out. They'd taken parts and so on, and that I would probably be required to go to court. And it was in my very early days in journalism, so I was actually the court reporter. I was at the cop shop, as they say, and so I went over. I was summoned to court, and I walked into the court. I knew the judge, I knew defense counsel, I knew prosecuting counsel, and I knew the policeman giving the evidence that the guy had pleaded not guilty, and he took one look at what was happening and turned around and said, "I give up." He copped a plea. The quickest conviction I ever got.
Well, I always think, well, maybe one day I'll get a Mini Cooper. I just don't know. I don't know.
They're a lovely little car, but you know the original Mini Cooper, the motor for it was actually designed and developed for fire pumps on the Thames, on the fireboats on the Thames. That's where the original engine came from. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I hear they're very high maintenance, though. So,
yes.
I'd have to win one. I'd have to win one in a raffle, maybe. And then I'll be
yeah. You just reminded me. I just in the last couple of weeks, I've been buying a lottery ticket on the basis that you can't win if you're not in, and I forgot to get one today, so I must, because they pulled tomorrow night. But I walk in full of hope and optimism on a Monday morning, and I give the thing over, and they just put it through a machine, as you know, and they say, "No." Disappointment. So I don't think I'm going to win a Mini in a lottery either.
I didn't say I would. I didn't say I wouldn't. I just said maybe I should.
Yes. Let's get serious. What has been happening, particularly with your son? What did he cover for NHK, the Japanese broadcaster, this week?
I think this week he covered the actors and writers strike. There were some actors and actresses in Times Square, so he was able to interview a few actors and actresses. I must confess, because I'm really not much of a moviegoer lately, the new movies, nor do I watch television. I really don't know some of the names. Michelle Hurd, which is she was in a Law and Order series when I used to watch television. I really don't watch it anymore. A lot of it is, I don't know, it's just junky. You know, it's not of great quality, and a lot of the movies are all, they're all AI and they're all technical effects. It's not. It's just not.
Yeah.
Superheroes. Okay, so we have superheroes. I guess I've never been into superheroes. I appreciate those who do, but it's just not my cup of tea.
No.
I don't really know what my cup of tea is lately. I really don't. I don't watch. I try to get off of the media and try to get into life.
Yes.
Get off of one illusion and into another. Is this. So
well, I'll tell you what I watch in a moment, but I recall 30 years ago when the first Hollywood actors strike took place, and the leading activist was the guy who played Lou Grant in the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
he was great.
Yes, he was a lovely man.
I
and
can't remember his name, but yeah, he was great. He's great.
Yeah, and in fact, when I spent my time in Kosovo, the people there, their access to television had been quite limited. But the Mary Tyler Moore Show had been one that they had watched. So they said, "Oh, you look just like this chap." So they dubbed me Lou.
You do look a little bit like him. That's true.
Yeah, you mean portly?
But yeah, but yeah, right. But I just don't. So he covered the strike, and I think he's covering a couple of other stories. The bleaching of the coral in Florida. Coral's bleached.
Oh yes.
So what ends up happening is that all of the fish that feed on the coral, there's nothing to feed. They don't have any food, and then they die, and so then we end up with dead oceans. So yeah, it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. And then what else was he covering? Smart guns. We have a company here that's creating what's called a smart gun, which is there's electronics placed into like a pistol, for example. It can only be used by you. Facial recognition, fingerprint recognition, passwords, and things of that nature. So it's certainly more safe in that respect.
Right.
You don't need to lock it up and worry that your kid's going to use it because only you can. That's the concept anyway.
So it's theft-proof.
Correct.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yep. So it would be useless to a criminal who steals your gun.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Very fascinating.
Is it as lethal as a regular gunpowder
yes.
pistol? It is.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. Now that is interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you think it will be helpful?
I think so. I think, but here's the thing: it eliminates a lot of the arguments of guns being stolen and in the hands of criminals. So we shouldn't have the gun rights. So it eliminates some of those arguments in terms when it comes to say, oh, they're not safe because your child will use it while your child can't use it because only you can. So it will eliminate some of the reasons why certain folks and certain groups want to restrict gun rights because we have the right to guns here. We have the right to defend ourselves here. So if somebody comes into our house, we have the right to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. It's not clear here. I think we have the right to defend, but we don't have the right to willy-nilly carry a gun in the street. So it's much muted. We're not a gun-carrying society here.
Right.
I mean, not least of which is that, of course, guns were very expensive in the days when people didn't have much money. So it wasn't a common thing to
buy. There's just this interesting thought or concept that overall, and I understand that there's certainly more gun violence here than there is there. But then again, we as citizens have the rights to defend ourselves. You really don't.
No, that's right. I mean,
it's not even defending ourselves against criminals. It's defending yourself against the government and the military.
Really? Yeah,
because
that defense extends to that. Yeah.
certainly, certainly, I mean, the police officers, they're going to think twice before entering a house.
Yeah.
In Britain, no,
Oh
no,
no. Oh no.
just walk right in.
The Sweeney is quite used to actually breaking down the front door.
Yeah, they're not going to do that in the United States. They're not.
Yeah. Actually, I'm sorry that the two R's weren't available this morning. Two B's rather, the two barristers, because they would have a view on that. And in fact, I'm glad you raised it because I think they'll be in on Monday, and I shall use that as a topic of conversation to see what the exact law is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what your laws are over there. I know what our laws are over here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they differ widely, diverge widely over here. Yeah.
Yeah, they diverge within states here. So our southern states are much more, you're much more free when it comes to gun carrying and gun use, buying a gun, having a license. Like if I wanted to buy a pistol in New York, I have to go and get a license first before I even look to purchase anything. So that's going to take 6 months, and you got to go through a safety course and this and that and that and this. Whereas if I were living in Florida or Texas, I just walk into a shop and buy it. Now they'll do a background check on me to make sure I'm not a criminal.
Yeah.
But that's the extent of it, and that doesn't take that long. But in New York, it's much more restrictive.
It seems to me. Landing at New York. And there was the first thing that hits you is a sign saying, if you have a gun, please declare it to the police because your license in your state does not give you the right to carry it in.
Right. Correct. Yeah. That's correct. And I guess the idea in New York is that New York City is so populated. So you don't want everybody with a gun. Of course, only the criminals really are allowed to have guns. Hello, guys. But the thing is, there's a huge part of New York. Most of New York is rural. It doesn't apply. It shouldn't apply. It's rural.
Manhattan and so on.
Yeah, it's just rural farmland. And why shouldn't somebody be able to carry a rifle or be able to carry a gun out there? Why? Because you don't like guns? I mean, sorry, our Constitution states that we have the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Is it that there is no right of a state to override the Constitution?
No.
Right.
And in fact, there was a recent Supreme Court ruling, and it involved concealed carrying a weapon, having it in your bag, so to speak.
Yeah.
In New York, the law was applied unevenly, and the Supreme Court cited the state for that. So now they have signs in the city, this is a gun-free zone. So that's how they've gotten around it. This is a gun-free zone. This is a gun-free zone, trying to make everything a gun-free zone. They're going to get in trouble for that too. So I'm sure there's a fight brewing in our Supreme Court that's going to make it to the Supreme Court for that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's true. I mean, who carries guns? You got police in this. So who carries a gun in the city? Police and criminals.
Yeah.
Your average person can't.
Yeah. The shotguns, a 12 bore, is quite common to be held by farmers because of vermin and so on and so forth. But the average man in the street, I think if I went out and walked down Lewis High Street now and said to anybody, are you carrying a gun? Except for a policeman. And even then, some of them don't carry guns. I would be lucky if I found one or two.
Nope, I seem to have disappeared. Sure.
Oh, you only disappeared temporarily. You blanked me out, as they say.
What were you saying there, Keith?
I said if I walked out onto the street and asked people, "Are you carrying a gun?" I could walk up and down the street, and if I found one or two, I would be very lucky.
Right. The thing is, you're not in the New York City subway system every day.
No, quite.
And I guarantee if those folks on the street were in this New York City subway system, they would want to have a pistol in their bags
Yes,
just in case.
yes.
Because you will get accosted. It's very possible. I mean, there's some very menacing people in the
Yes.
subway systems.
Oh yes,
It
I
can be
mean,
very scary.
yeah. When I've ridden the New York Metro, I must confess is I'm not on edge, but my eyes are everywhere.
Yes, you have to be very aware. You really do. I know there's an attempt to clean that up and to make things safer, but it's not there at this time. It's not there yet.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And there's this idea that, well, if you have a good reason to conceal carry, what good reason do I need to have? That I was attacked? I need to be attacked first before I can carry a gun?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Or why? Because I'm such an important person. Oh, maybe Donald Trump carries. But he's also got an entourage and they all carry. I'm sure Joe Biden's entourage carries.
Oh,
I'm sure the governor of New York, she has officers who protect her. They're carrying guns, so she can be protected.
Well,
but
I mean,
I can't.
I can guarantee that that's the case because I saw Clint Eastwood carrying it when he was protecting the president.
Yeah. So all of these folks can carry, but the rest of us can't. Okay, really?
Okay, now it's your moment.
My moment.
Yes.
Oh, my moment. My studies are on hold till September, so but I'll be diving into the law, and a lot of the law, we're starting to see a lot of cases coming into our Justice Department and to our courts of just a lot of it is folks being with disabilities being marginalized and institutionalized for no reason, just the fact that we don't know what to do with them. We don't want to spend the money, or the states don't want to spend the money to work with them and put them into a community setting where they can actually try to live a good life, to put them into the schools, to get them, the group homes, to get them to be able to have access to buildings, have access to stores, have access to education. And so a lot of that right now is coming through, which is actually a good thing because it's like the state of Florida was cited for institutionalizing children at the touch of a button. They have something in Florida. It was an issue. I saw it as an educator in the state of Florida, where young children who maybe were unruly, perhaps they had autism, perhaps they had mental issues, unruly, and they would lead them off in handcuffs in a police car. And then they do what's called a Baker Acting, where for about, I think, 72 hours, they're held in a psychiatric ward. It's insane. These are little children. These are a 6-year-old being, you can't handle a 6-year-old who's unruly? You got to put them in handcuffs? Are you serious? So the police need training. The educators need training.
And is that taking place?
It's starting to slowly. It's starting to. They're being forced to. Parents complaining. You can't lead a 6-year-old off in handcuffs. What kind of crazy is that? That's just nuts. So everybody, they need to be trained. I mean, I as an educator in Florida, I dealt with it. I did, but I didn't lead any child off in handcuffs. I knew how to de-escalate, just common sense. A lot of teachers just don't have that training. All they're trained to do is to teach a little test, a state test. They're not really taught to deal with each child at their own level, which is what they're supposed to do. Being an educator is not easy. It's tough, and I don't know if it's a wonderful profession. It can be very satisfying, but it is difficult. So
yes.
Anyway,
but I mean, actually, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And to be quite honest with you, particularly for people under mental stress, one of my colleagues a little while ago now, but in London, and she said the trouble with our system for looking after people with mental illness is that it hasn't altered since Victorian times.
Right.
Now, I think a little bit, but
it has.
looked after somebody for a while, and so I went into a couple of these places and so on, and it really hasn't. And the attitude is. I mean, I had to go into a meeting with the psychiatrists, and there were about 5 people there from the institution, and quite innocently, I was trying to say, look, I'm quite specific, and I said, I have a fairly good command of the English language, and immediately these people said, do you mean that we don't? It was all about them, not about the person. So
Did you tell them yes?
Yes.
Yeah, and you clearly don't.
Well, you know, I don't mince words, particularly with the officialdom. So it was quite an interesting time, to be quite honest with you. But the mere fact that there is that reaction was it really. It absolutely shocked.
It's very immature. It's just a very immature. Well, think about it. So, not to disparage anyone working in the healthcare system, a lot of times those working directly with the patients and taking care of their needs, they're not very highly paid. They're not highly valued in the system. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So you have a system where they're very underpaid, they're uneducated, and they're underpaid, and they're just watching somebody drool in a corner instead of actually engaging with them and trying to help them. Now, not everyone, because not everyone. There are healthcare aides who are very good, but I would say, you know, this is why you're seeing the neglect you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because they're not valued.
Well, I admire you for launching into this really what is about a 3rd or a 4th career, and you've been terribly successful at all of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I just decide one day, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to be this. You know, I don't know. It's why can't you do that? Why not?
Well, somebody as multi-talented as you, it's just like falling off a log. But
you know, I'm just. I think on August 4th, I'm going to declare that I'm a princess, and I will be treated like one. Which I'm usually treated like one. So.
Yeah, but don't change your name to Meghan.
Oh no. No. Just she's in my mind. She's not a princess. Sorry.
No, nor in mine actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
okay, Melissa, that's wonderful to have you and to talk to you again on a Friday. And when do you leave for Naples?
Well, I'll be in your neck of the woods on August 4th.
August the 4th. Ah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
That's next week.
Yes, indeed. And actually, and it's strange enough, on August the 3rd is the memorial service or concert to Stephen at the town hall. So I think you'll just miss that. But by the same token, whoops, you've gone again. I'm sure you'll come back in a moment.
Yes, you lost me there, Keith.
Yes, I did. But I'm sure that while you're here, we'll be able to talk quite, because there are a number of people who very hold him in huge esteem. His memory is not going to go anywhere, and we're going to make sure with our big watering can. Already, John Henty has agreed to be the chairman, so we're starting to probe. But we're waiting for this concert to get over before we actually start the long-term bit, as it were. But we'll look forward to seeing you. As always.
Is anyone tending the garden?
No, but I've already got well, because it's a council, right? You know what they're like. It's a green council. So therefore, anything green they won't touch. But I already have got our.
I guarantee they mow their lawns. I guarantee.
We have got our gardener ready to move in the moment that we're given the go ahead. So we have
Is that area locked? Nobody can go in?
Yes, it's locked. You can see through the gate. The actual gate is from the 13th century. It's a 13th century gate,
Right.
which was on the Greyfriars Abbey, and it's in remarkably good shape, actually. And you can look through at the garden, but you can't actually get into it.
That's a shame. So why can't somebody open the gate
Well,
and let somebody tend to the garden? Is that so difficult?
No, I don't think it is. Actually, one of the things that I thought we might do is have 4 times a year have a Stephen Catlin picnic, in which we would go into that garden without disturbing it and destroying it, with a very limited number of people, but have a little picnic in his honor.
That sounds wonderful. But the thing is, gardening, are they concerned about how it's being gardened? I mean, they don't care about it, clearly.
No, we do. And to be quite honest with you, I think that the local politicians are getting used now to the fact that Mirador television tends to tell them what to do rather than vice versa.
That's so crazy. They just, I don't, what do they do? What do they do?
Well, that's a very good question, and we're trying to because Stuart has been scratching the surface. For instance, he discovered the set of books which they should have put into the auditor, and it's got all the categories in, but no figures opposite to them, so nobody knows what they is.
I thought that they outsource everything now.
Some things, not everything. Not everything. Is what's happened is that the main administrative offices have been moved to Eastbourne, so they've still got a substantial staff in Eastbourne. But there are there's some things are, for instance, I think actually some of the gardening is outsourced, and mending of houses. And looking after the public toilets, that sort of thing, is
you'll start to see that's going to decline.
Well, that I think is what's happened to Stephen's garden, is because he did it personally himself. Right. Is that there was nothing to take over, so our memorial to him is that it will be looked after in perpetuity. I told a little story yesterday when we were talking about Stephen and about the garden and so on, and we used the word in perpetuity. And Dennis Waterman, I don't know whether you recognize the name, but he was an English actor who played with Arthur Cole, and they played spirits and that sort of thing. And a very good actor, but he made a documentary or a docudrama a few years ago about the first ever World Soccer Cup, and the sniffy English wouldn't take part in it. So a little village from the north, this is a true story, by the way, a little village from the north represented England, and they won. And they went back 4 years later, and nobody gave them any money. They all hocked their furniture and so on to pay to get there. And they come back, and the final scene in this movie is with this chap holding the cup. And his little son is looking at him, and the boy reads it, and it says, "To be held in perpetuity." And he says, "What is a perpetuity, Dad?" And the man looks at him and says, "Forever, lad, forever." A beautiful line. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes. Bye,
Okay.
Keith. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Well, there we are. Melissa has been with us, and a good chat. I hope that we haven't bored you too much this morning. No, we haven't bored you. Sometimes, though, I suppose listening to the same voice, and sometimes, and I had hoped this morning that we were going to have a new voice to listen to, but she didn't turn up, and that sometimes is sad about something like this. Is that people like the idea of it, but can't actually bring themselves to do it. But there we are. That's the way of life, and hopefully we can change it bit by bit. So until Monday morning at the usual time of it's 8:30, this is Keith Hayes, Mirador Television from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes in East Sussex, the White Hart Hotel where Tom Paine formulated the rights of man before leaving for the colonies and persuading the colonists to break away from Britain and form that incredible country, the United States. That's where we're saying toodle pip from. And toodle pip it is. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll toodle pip you again. Yes. Toodle, toodle, toodle pip.